So, and when you moved there, at what point did you felt the band was moving forward?
It's hard to say really, because I think Tom was finishing off his degree and Hayden and I were only a year and a half into ours when we signed. When we signed to Domino, we'd already done a few singles with the local label at that point, so that was also an encouraging sign. But I think it was probably when we signed the record deal that it's like, okay, well, this is now actually a job. I think we waited for 2 or 3 months for you to finish your degree, and then we kind of knew that this is what we wanted to do.
It didn't feel like waiting. I mean, at the time we were kind of like, we maybe practice sort of, I mean, just to give you a kind of idea of what we were doing, it was like sort of rehearsing 5 nights a week and going down to London maybe once or twice a week, and you know, and playing shows and doing little interviews and stuff. So we were kind of very busy before we actually were, you know, we saw any return on it, if you know what I mean. It was kind of like, I think for me the turning point was putting out that first single.
Yeah,
and everyone just going like, what? Who are these guys? You know what I mean? It did feel like we kind of, I don't know. It felt it's nice when you feel that like, because obviously you run around with the idea if you're making something that you're good and it's good, you know. But you expect to be intimidated by when you go somewhere else. You expect to be intimidated by what's already there. And when you realise that actually your stuff is quite good against that stuff, then you start to feel maybe better about things and maybe like get confidence and kind of an idea that maybe you can actually do this, which I think is what we got at that point.
So what were you, just matter of interest, what were you studying at that point?
I have an English degree for my sins. I mean, I probably used it more being, you know, making music than ever a job I could have got qualified. I mean, and what job would that be? You know, I mean, I remember when I was looking for a job and we weren't making any money from the band, is I couldn't get a job in a phone shop with a degree. So it's like, I think I'm very lucky that I can use that stuff in a certain way.
Mm.
And in what way is that?
Just in terms of like, just a way of looking at things. I think a way of like thinking left, if that makes sense. Like kind of taking a sideways look at things, or trying to look at things fresh. You know what I mean? I think that's what I was kind of taught to do.
And what were you studying?
I was doing like an arts management degree, which was, we call it in the UK a Mickey Mouse degree, basically. It was something I mean, it was relevant to what we were doing as a band. I mean, I think we did kind of move to Leeds and become students to kind of free up the time to be in a band, because you can't really do a job and juggle a band. It's pretty hard.
Of course, that's not possible anymore now in the UK.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't know, there's like triple tuition fees for university, so people like us couldn't go anymore.
Yeah, if you got a university, yeah, exactly, yeah. And if you do manage to afford it, you bloody well stay there. But Hayden was doing sociology as well, so it was a no-brainer when the record deal came along what our choice was going to be.
So do you feel you have the degree to have some sort of a plan B, or to?
In my experience, there is no plan B. You know, I mean, in my experience of all this, it's always hand to mouth, and there's always pressure, and when you talk about falling back on something, it's really just starting again. You know what I mean? So I think we're kind of,
what's that?
We're all pretty kind of, we want this to work. You know what I mean? We're all kind of pretty focused on it.
So you said you had an English degree?
Yeah.
Staying with language, your former name was, I hope I pronounce it right, Fauve?
Fauve, yeah, which is a derogatory term used for, well, I don't know if it's maybe it started out as derogatory and then it became it stuck. But the group of painters, Matisse, and that kind of area of painting about being kind of untutored, you know what I mean, wild and untutored and untamed, you know, in that respect. And it's The Wild Beast is just a straight translation of that. I always liken it to when I don't know, when say a dish in French is translated and it means duck and potatoes, you know what I mean? And once you take away that level of like, we're a fancy band because our name's French, you know, once you take that away, I think it gets a little more interesting. Because I think our name sounds like a pub band name, you know. But I think we're kind of growing into it more as we go.
You mentioned the painters.
Yeah.
What kind of artistic style was that? Do you know?
Oh, well, it was like impressionistic, but it was very close to what was going on. Just there were pinks where there shouldn't be, and magentas and yellows where there shouldn't be, and I think that was kind of. it was just like a kind of explosion of colour after the kind of realism that came before. You know, I think that's kind of, it's just to a certain extent that's kind of what we were trying to do. I think at the time we were talking about the era when Arctic Monkeys shot to #1 and stuff, and it was very kind of blunt music, like kind of it was very macho, very northern, and you know, we're kind of from the same kind of culture as that, and we didn't feel it was kind of the way we wanted to portray things. So I think to a certain extent, I think that's probably part of our thinking.